you for joining us. Quite the look for Tan and Grace there. Apologies to Todd Stevens. Tan and Grace on the Legacy match. But thank you for joining us. This is our first quarterfinal here at the Team Open in Louisville. So we focus on the center seat. It is Nick Byrd versus Todd Stevens. Nick Byrd winning a Modern Open already this season with ad nauseum. He's looking to do more work yet again here. He'll be playing against Todd Stevens, a player with a lot of chops on different Modern decks. We've seen him top 8 with Eldrazi Tron, with Red White Prison, with Green White Company, all recently.
Yeah, no top 8s with this Eldrazi Tron just yet. He has put up some strong starts.
And we go for, so Nick Byrd starts on Leyline of Sanctity and Lotus Bloom. I mentioned before that because of Nick's build, he has very few turn 3s, but he is a solid turn 4 deck. This draw really drives that point home.
Yeah, the Lotus Bloom means just one more, I suppose 2 more mana sources, and he's able to effectively combo off if he has the cards.
All right, Todd Stevens with Urza's Tower into Expedition Map. So he represents the possibility to make turn 3 Tron.
Yep. What he really wants to have some of those Chalice of the Voids. Chalice of the Void on 0 would stop this Lotus Bloom from being a factor.
Right. If Todd has that, we likely won't see it until the turn before Lotus Bloom comes off suspend. There's really no reason for him to commit it ahead of time. Go back over to Nick Byrd. Now, with that Leyline in play, so you mentioned Todd's interactive spell. The first one you said there, absolutely, Chalice of the Void. Todd winning before turn 4 is off the table. Thought-Knot Seer, though, is gone now as well. And for Todd, we see Urza's Power Plant, so he does have turn 3 Tron. And he'll need it. Nick Byrd takes the Lotus Bloom down to 1. You see Ad Nauseam and Simian Spirit Guide, both in hand for Byrd. A quick game 1 from our upper table. Jeff Stevens with lands takes a game off Tan and Grace. And Nick setting up for the kill. Here's Phyrexian Unlife. He had to use Simian Spirit Guide to cast it, meaning he's just got the 3 mana off Bloom and the 2 lands to make Ad Nauseam.
The Eldrazi Tron list plays fewer Karns than other builds of Tron. Only 2 Karn liberated in Stevens' deck. But if he finds one here, getting rid of that Phyrexian Unlife, that could make a huge difference in this game.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to get very aggressive, getting rid of a land is pretty good here, too.
Yeah.
It does give a big opening because Nick is off mana. A Chalice for 0, A+ from Todd.
Yeah.
So big turn. Can he do it? Karn. We're looking for Karn or Chalice of the Void, his 2 interactive cards.
Drew Expedition Map. That was not what he was looking for.
So here's the tower. 7 mana available to Todd Stevens. What is it that he's going to cast? Endbringer Expedition Map. That was not the answer we were looking for here, and that should mean the turn 4 from Nick Byrd will convert.
Yeah, against, Stomping Grounds and decks that play Stomping Grounds.
Yeah, this is great.
This is really nice, but not against a combo deck.
Yeah, but Nick left a window for Todd to interact. As it is, we'll watch this one happen. Lotus Bloom comes into play. 5 lands, Ad Nauseam. Phyrexian Unlife's in play, which means Nick can't lose due to life points. He'll draw his whole deck, exile 3 Simian Spirit Guides. He used 1, so you always do have to watch out for that. Though here he could have exiled even a second. He goes Spirit Guide, Spirit Guide. He hasn't made his land drops, so do that. Do the third one, he'll cast Lightning Storm. He'll discard 9 lands to Lightning Storm, making it a 20-point burn spell targeted at Todd, and that should be good enough for the first game. See Todd counting it out. We've seen Nick do this before. We've seen him take home a trophy doing this. Not going to mess this one up. Todd will direct it back. Nick says, all right, he'll direct it back too.
Pretty unlikely that Byrd had another land.
Right. And so game 1 will go to Nick Byrd. Turn 4 checks Todd. Todd does not pass. So for the team of Stevens, Byrd, and Allen, they pick up a quick win in both Legacy and Modern.
And these 2 matchups are both very rough. They need Brennan to win his match, for sure.
Right. I do think it's possible for Todd to steal this match. You saw there on that, he had the turn 3 Tron, which is great. We did mention there were 2 cards, so 5 total. His 3 Chalices and 2 Karns. If either of them were in his hand, not only is Todd able to win, he might even just be the favorite with both those. Because Nick's kill was Unlife and not Angel's Grace, Then the Pact of Negation to protect himself wasn't available.
Right.
But we'll look at the sideboards. I do want to start with Todd Stevens. He's looking for really anything that can interact here.
Yeah, and out of his sideboard, he does have that 4th Chalice of the Void. That was one of his more important cards. That one for sure is coming in. You can bring in Pithing Needle and name Lightning Storm. That's really not going to do too much. That problem is eminently solvable for the Ad Nauseam deck if it's on the radar there. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot else going on. The other card is Ratchet Bomb. You can tick it up to 3, and that solves Unlife combo. There's some weird spots where maybe you can catch a Lotus Bloom. That's generally not going to work. A lot of times you'll be able to just cast Ad Nauseam with that mana in whatever phase you try to bomb the Bloom.
Yeah, what it can do is, and it's pretty minor, sometimes you'll see a non-nauseam player keep a hand with 2 Lotus Blooms and no mana sources. In that situation, like, you're right, it's not great here.
Yeah, if it's just Angel's Grace Ad Nauseam, they'll get through that.
They're still, right, they will end up still getting through it. So we'll see what Todd can do here. They're also, I'm wondering if he wants to switch up some of his win cons, if he can play defense successfully, which is really what he has to do, the way he chooses to play offense isn't going to matter here.
Right. Yeah, these changes, Batterskull, Wormcoil Engine, he can bring these cards in over some of the air. These Dismembers have to come out. This Basilisk Collar is not very impressive. Walking Ballista is not the best threat in his main deck. That one can come out too.
Yeah, so I'm going to look over at the Nicholas's Bird's sideboard. He's got Path to Exile, Monastery Mentor, Thoughtseize, Lab Maniac, Echoing Truth, Damnation, Pact of Negation, Disenchant, Ethereal Haze, which is a white fog. Sometimes you'll see darkness here as well, and Hurkyl's Recall. So a lot of times with Ad Nauseam, the sideboard, when you talk to Ad Nauseam players, the first thing they want on their sideboard is 4 Leyline of Sanctities.
Yep.
Nick Byrd wants them enough that they're not even in the sideboard. So he does have options here. But a lot of times you're going to see him board very lightly for the matchup. He
has some pretty juicy options. Again, he has that core of his deck he needs to maintain. But Thoughtseize to deal with all of Steven's stuff. Steven's interaction, pretty much stuff that's permanence that cost at least 2 mana, with Chalice of the Void. So Thoughtseize is pretty impactful against all that stuff. Disenchant will deal with Chalice of the Void as well, so that solves a good amount of the problems. That's probably about all he's looking at. He has this transformational Monastery Mentor sideboard, but that's the kind of stuff that Eldrazi Tron usually just beats, so that kind of transformation doesn't really make sense here.
Yeah, and in that situation, sometimes you'll see a Lab Maniac. What that can do is provide him a secondary win condition in case he's worried about some sort of extracting effect. Maybe getting something Thoughtseize. There are some cute things in a Spoils of the Vault version where Lab Maniac actually can be a faster kill. Nick is not playing that, so I don't, as Todd doesn't have that kind of extracting effect, it's probably not going to happen. An interesting one that you might see out of Byrd is actually the card Damnation here.
Yeah, that'll clean up whatever kind of clock that Todd has assembled. Buy you plenty of time. Yeah,
in a situation where you see Thought-Knot Seers and Nick manages to cast a Damnation, it's more than good enough.
Yeah. Get back some cards in your hand, stop the pressure.
Yeah, now the players you see here having access to deck lists. How this works in a team event is while a given match is sideboarding, players get deck lists. So because Todd Stevens and Nick Byrd are sideboarding, their teams get the opposing team's modern deck list, but modern only. And then as soon as Todd and Nick start playing again, the deck lists will go back to the judges.
Yeah, you can't just play with that face-up during the match.
That'd be really strong.
Wouldn't be very interesting.
All right. Over Star City Games, we have our weekly sale. This happens at the StarCityGames.com store. We have something different on sale every week. This week, it has been up to 30% off all MP cards. That's moderately played cards. By moderately played, though, that can mean they're still in great condition. So something that if you're getting to get for your deck as opposed to your collection, this is a great opportunity to head on over to the store and pick up some of the singles.
Yeah.
Also, check in tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. for next week's weekly sale.
Yeah, I would definitely check this one out, particularly if you keep a cube. Commander decks, really. There's a lot of expensive cards that go in Commander decks, and if you're looking for a deal, you'll find some deals on some very well-graded cards. I have a friend that keeps upwards of 20 Commander decks.
You keep upward of 20 Commander decks?
I don't. Andy Martin does.
Okay.
I don't know how he keeps up with that.
There's a lot of, yeah, I mean, especially if you keep multiple Commander decks or cubes. I always liked Commander and cubes because just in the course of playing Magic, I tend to get one-ofs a lot more easily than I would get play sets of things.
Yeah. And if you're like me, if I have one slot that could technically be one Grim Monolith moving around. I would rather own 3 Grim Monoliths.
Yeah, I did for a while play Commander where I had to switch a card between like a bunch of different decks. I only owned 1 Soul Ring. It's like, oh, okay, hold on, if I want to play this one, let me. And they're like, that's horrible. Just get the other card.
Soul Rings are pretty easy to come by these days. You know, they're in every Commander supplemental product. There's so many Soul Rings now.
Players are going to discuss their sideboards a little bit more with teammates. Now for Todd Stevens, the 31-year-old from Denton, Texas, this last 2016 was just at the end of 2015 to 2016 was really his first year on the SCG Tour. He announced a goal late in 2015 that he was going to make the Players' Championship and then made good on his promises. Had his first appearance in the Players' Championship last December. 6 open top 8s that year, still looking for his first win.
Inspired to dress nicely by the character Neil Caffrey from White Collar. I don't know that source material. I don't know how to judge Todd about this fact. I'll assume it's positive. Todd's a really great guy.
Yeah, and you can catch him over on twitch.tv. He's a full-time Magic streamer. The time is right now as well. See both Legacy and Modern matches heading for the second game. So Byrd and Stevens both taking their respective wins. Over on the bottom, off the bottom, we still have Zach Allen and Brennan DeCandio on their first game here in Standard.
Yeah, neither of those decks are decks that win particularly quickly. Can't glean too much information off of that. Up on the top table, the second game is still going, so at least Tannen has not fallen to Merit Lage. Presumably that's what happened in the first game with how quickly that one went down.
Yeah, do want to just make a correction here on our screen. Zach Allen is the Teamer Tower player here in the matchup, so it is not a black-green mirror match. It's the Teamer Tower deck. We saw them earlier, that deck actually play against Frank Scarron.
And
all right, so Nicholas Byrd and Todd Stevens looking opening hands. For Todd, it's going to be a mulligan here. He is searching for a limited number of interactive cards, so it's not surprising to see him take a mulligan in the game.
yeah, when you're drawing to very specific things, you can't just keep a lands and spells kind of hand. That's just not going to work.
Well, we saw that before. You know, Todd had turn 3 Tron on the draw, which is pretty good, and without the right payoff spells, you know, it's like Chalice the Void is more important than turn 3 Tron in this matchup, which is strange to say.
Yeah. Yeah, this matchup's about one thing, and that's Byrd's combo. Stevens has to stop that from happening and then win somehow.
Yeah, and the somehow is pretty open. You know, he can just play lands that produce 1, play defense, and then just cast a Reality Smasher. That might work.
Yeah. Yeah, in game 1, really, he had several draws that he could have just closed the game with. You know, the Chalice on 0 would have been huge there. Byrd was having some mana woes. Karn Liberated could have closed things out.
Todd Stevens going to go to 5. For the Ad Nauseam player here, a lot of Nick Byrd's decks, their big opening hands, are pretty probabilistic. You know, he's got a bunch of Temples, Sleight of Hands, Serum Visions. Todd can always hope for a fail rate on Nick Byrd's side. You can't just mulligan to the combo with Ad Nauseam. The numbers aren't there for that. So, you know, say you see a hand of, and your scries aren't that powerful. Say you see a hand of 3 Temples plus an Ad Nauseam plus a Lotus Bloom. You're never shipping this.
Yep.
But you certainly could fail to find a white card.
Yeah, it happens often enough where the Ad Nauseam player keeps 7 cards and then does really nothing noteworthy. Now, when your Goryo's Vengeance opponent keeps 7 cards, that's frequently you have to be pretty
Oh, yeah, you
scared
should watch
about
out.
that
You
one.
should watch out on that one. You're probably losing. Zach Allen takes game 1 in the standard match. So now all 3 games going to game 2, and all of them going for the team of Stevens, Byrd, and Allen. Todd keeps on 5, starts off turn 1 with Pithing Needle. We'll see what he names here. There's not actually many cards you can name, as Byrd will suspend Lotus Bloom. So Todd can name Lightning Storm with Needle. That has an effect. It's one of the only cards in the deck that actually Needle does anything against.
Yeah, Needle can name any card, can't shut off mana abilities, so it won't do anything about Lotus Bloom.
All right, so this is a weird one. Why would, it's very rare that Pithing Needle names an instant, but Cold Snap was a weird time. This instant has an activated ability. So the ability that lets Nick Byrd put more charge counters on the Lightning Storm, well, let's Todd do it too, can't be played. So this is now a 3 damage burn spell for 3, unless Nick gets this off the table.
Yep. On its own, the Lightning Storm's not doing too much, but post-sideboard, Byrd has access to Laboratory Maniac, so we can just go for that kill.
Right, so that kill's going to be a bit higher of a mana investment. What you have to do with that situation is you have to cast Ad Nauseum, and then you do need to have 2 blue mana, 1 for the Lab Maniac, 1 for the Serum Visions to win on that turn. And without Pentad Prism, that can be difficult for Nick Byrd.
Yeah, that much is certainly true. Steven's not putting up too much pressure on his side of the table, though.
Yeah, well, he does have a clock. It was Matter Reshaper on turn 3 here. He has a pair of Ghost Quarters as well. So this will deal some damage. The question is how cold Nicholas is to the Pithing Needle. And the answer is probably, it may force him, instead of winning on 6 mana, Grace Ad Nauseum, he has to get up to 8. The bloom goes down to 1, Unlife in hand for Byrd.
Yeah, and you might be thinking, if you need a Lightning Storm, then you can just kill Lab Maniac, right? Well, wrong. If the Laboratory Maniac's in play, that means that Bird's drawn his entire deck, which features several copies of Pact of Negation.
Right. Sleight of hand from Nick Byrd. This is a upside for Todd. Had Nick just played an Unlife, and then next turn played another land and an Ad Nauseum, it would be enough mana to win with the Lab kill. That's assuming that Byrd has boarded in Lab Maniac. You see him cast a second Sleight of Hand. If he has not, then he's going to have to find one of his bounce spells, and those are much harder to come by. He does have 2 Peer Through Depths to try to find them, but finding an individual 1 of or 2 of in this deck is difficult.
Yeah. This isn't Legacy. No Ponders, Brainstorms here.
Damage coming across from Todd Stevens. The Matter Shaper hits for 3.
I have to imagine that Disenchant is in the deck to deal with Chalice of the Void, but he has to find it still.
Yeah. And speaking of Chalice in the Void, Todd Stevens has one in hand. He's going to cast Mind Stone. Maybe we'll see a Chalice on 0. We will. That's going to counter Lotus Bloom.
That's going to set Byrd pretty far back.
This was the card Stevens was looking for in the first game. He finds it in game 2. Now, if Byrd has a kill, yeah, and I was going to say, this is what could happen here. Pact of Negation on it. This means he's planning to Angel's Grace on upkeep. When you play Angel's Grace, you can't lose this turn, which means you just don't have to pay for your pacts.
Right. And there's also the fear that that Angel Grace will be accompanied by Ad Nauseum.
Okay, so what is likely to happen here? And this is why Needle's not particularly great. Upkeep, he's going to Angel's Grace. Nick has 5 lands. If he draws up to a 6th, he casts Ad Nauseum with a blue floating. Draws his entire deck, pitches 4 Simian Spirit Guides, uses the blue floating in the Spirit Guide to bounce the Pithing Needle, uses the other 3 Spirit Guides to cast Lightning Storm and still win the game. And we see 5 mana now. And in fact, he doesn't even need to have the blue source in hand. He'll just cast Ad Nauseum. He can't lose the game this turn, so he's going to draw his whole deck. And you can tell by his motions, Nick believes he's won this.
Yeah. I'm sure this is not the first time that he's played this through a Pithing Needle.
If he has an Island, a Echoing Truth, 4 Spirit Guides, and the Lightning Storm, this is going to be a 2-0 win for Nick Byrd.
And these cards aren't cards that you realistically cut in a matchup like this. There's no way there's a Simian Spirit Guide hanging out in the sideboard, for example.
So Gemstone Mine makes a blue mana. Finding all his spirit guides. See all 4 of them there. So blue and red, Hurkyl's Recall. That'll bounce all the artifacts, including the Pithing Needle. I don't believe Todd Stevens has a card that'll stop that. He's going to draw a card with Mind Stone. Picks up the Pithing Needle. Mattery Shaper can stay. Well, for just a few minutes,
it can stay for as long as the game lasts.
Other 3 Spirit Guides cast the Lightning Storm. There's no Needle in play. Nick Byrd can pitch 9 lands to it, making another lethal Lightning Storm, and that is going to be the match. Nick Byrd in Modern, 2-0 will be the winner over Todd Stevens.
That's about how you expect this matchup to go. You know, when you're drawing to so few cards that can really interact with your opponent, and you can't kill them before they can kill you, you're on average much slower than them, you can expect to lose a lot of those games. And you're seeing handshakes all around there.
Yeah, and that's because just as that one finishes, it is Jeff Stevens beating Tan and Grace again. So a dominant 5-0, a 20 minutes. It is the team of Stevens, Byrd, and Allen. 2-0, 2-0. They're not even going to let Zach finish his match. They are on to the semifinals.
Yep, really impressive stuff. Advanced against one of the stronger teams in the field. And so Nick Byrd advances to the semifinals. He's looking for his 2nd trophy. Remember, he has won an Open with the Ad Nauseam deck previously.
All right. So now just 2 more match wins away for the team of Stevens, Byrd, and Allen. And we'll wait for that. So that's going to be the end of the line for Tan and Grace, Todd Stevens, and Brendan DeCandio. But we do have our first team into the semifinals. Now, that was a quick one, so we are going to attempt to move another team over. And that can always be a difficult thing to do because in a team event, you know, normally you'd wait until players are between a game to move them onto the cameras. With 3 people playing, there's always someone playing a game. So we're going to hang out here a bit and see whether or not that's possible. But going through that, I mean, Modern was a tough matchup for them. Legacy looked like a tough matchup. Standard may have been their best shot, but we really didn't even get to see.
Yeah, all that we had reported was that Brennan was behind a game. The odds that, you know, Stevens and Grace win their pretty close to nightmare matchups.
Yeah, these
pretty
aren't
low.
easy ones.
Yeah, you know, we talk about sometimes with these team events, the teams with the very good players that have the 60-70% win percentages, when you have them on the same team, that's really good for them. But the same thing is kind of true when you have 2 matchups that are 40-30% favored to win, and you have to win 2 of them. Your odds of that are lowered.
Right. So that's going to be it for them. Now, so the other matches we do have going on, we have a 1 versus A matchup. We have Andrew Main's team. Like I said, they really haven't lost much. I do want to talk about some of the other Modern decks we have here. So Ad Nauseam now into the top 4. The big one is going to be the Abzan, the Counters Company deck. This is the Vizier of Remedies deck. It's being piloted by Andrew Main here. He was the one player to make it into top 8 with that deck. How do you feel, I guess, about that deck? You know, it certainly looked like it carried them into the top 8. Is this just a new player in Legacy, in Modern?
I think the upgrades were very significant. The deck can now combo in a way that ignores Graveyard Hate. The Eternal Witness, the ability to generate card advantage, and both the resilience that Eternal Witness presents lets you reset, combo off again.
Right.
You can build the deck in a way where you have multiple kinds of combos, so you're drawing to more potential things. You know, your collected company is more likely to assemble infinite something. Brad Carpenter, he top